Hey, Sean's here, and this will be the solution for the second task, which is to see right here, configure the network interfaces and host names on both servers, and we'll also cover task 3 as well because it's pretty short for ensuring network services start at boot. So now that we're logged into our server, there's a lot of different ways actually to get this task done. There's like ifconfig, IP adder. You can edit the script for, or rather the config file directly, like actually input everything indirectly, or use nmcli. Honestly, the list goes on, but since Red Hat Enterprise kind of has a lot of documentation, seems to really be forcing nmcli, which is the network manager command line interface. We're going to go ahead and use that, and honestly it's probably just the best idea. It's pretty good, even though they are forcing it. So one thing you also might want to know, so previously in previous versions of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, they had something called, and I'll take you to it right now. So it's at, I believe, it's config network source. And this file right here, it used to be without the Ruby prepended to it. We'll go ahead and just cat this so you can see. So this is what you used to be able to edit to actually change the interface names, and you can see that it is, now deprecated, and that you're not supposed to use this anymore. You can still actually use it. It's just a little bit more annoying to set up because they've made it more annoying to set up because they don't want to support it, obviously, but this is one of the ways that you can do it. So I just wanted to show you, just in case you were, reading stuff online, because this is not the supported way to actually get this done anymore. So now they really focus on what's called key files, and if you've done, programming, or you're familiar with like dictionaries as far as the data structure, then key files shouldn't be that much different than what you're used to, or things like JSON, stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and show you that too. So that's in network manager, I believe system connections, and then let's use like this just so you can see, and we'll pipe that to more. So this is basically what it looks like. It is just a key value store essentially. You have the different sections, and then you just assign to the keys a value for those keys basically, and it's pretty simple, works pretty well, and it also allows for the command line interface to interact with it directly and easily. That way you don't even have to come in here with like vi or something and actually edit this manually. You can use the nmcli, like I mentioned, to actually append configurations to this without ever actually touching the file itself. And surprisingly, this is actually documented very well. If you come here, it mentions again how that it was previously supporting the ifconfig files, but they don't do it anymore. They kind of give you a good breakdown here, and I'll go ahead and link this in the description below. And then the actual documentation for everything is in here. It's fairly extensive. It's much better than the man pages in my opinion, although the man pages aren't bad, especially since you can do context sensitive help with the man pages. So it's good to go through here and take a look if you're ever confused, or if you want to see everything. And of course I will link this in the description as well. So let's get started actually using the nmcli. So first thing we can kind of show here is this, and this will show kind of everything in the format that you might be used to. If you used to say, I don't know, IPA, you'd see pretty much the same kind of setup as far as that goes. So what if we want to see, more detailed information about everything? Well, we can use this here. So nmcli conn show will actually show the connection profiles. It'll show you the unique user identifier, which is a very long string, obviously. Then it'll show the type, which is Ethernet, the device name, which is EN-P0S3 for our NAT adapter, and then our wired connection 1, which is a bit long, so we probably want to touch this too as we go through, because this is the actual interface that we're going to be editing, this one right here. So another avenue to kind of get information here would be nmcli general, and what this allows us to see is some extra information. And if you also even open up nmcli general, it'll show you kind of the different things that you can use. So you can do general status, hostname, permissions, login, and reload. So while we're here, we take a look at hostname, and you will see also that we don't actually have a hostname set up right here. So we'll come back to that later on, because we are going to be setting up a hostname as well. But for right now, I actually did want to briefly talk about the help sensitive, or rather the context sensitive help for nmcli, which is actually pretty decent. So we can do things like nmcli conn help. It'll actually show us, specifically the help for nmcli con. That way, you know, so it shows us basically we can do like con show, up, down, add, modify, clone, edit, all this. And it's actually pretty good compared to doing like man nmcli, which personally I never really like man pages because they're kind of awkward to navigate. But the man page isn't bad for this. But I just wanted to point out that you can do things like this to get kind of more direct information, which I generally find more useful doing it this way than looking at the man page. And it's actually not, again, that bad for this particular command. So now we want to kind of take a look at more detailed information, and one way we can do that is by using the dev show command. So this will kind of bring a breakdown of your interfaces, give you more detailed interface information, but it is a little bit difficult to kind of parse through for at least the regular person. So we'll use the -p, which is the pretty flag, kind of make it a little bit easier to digest, and you can kind of see the individual lines a little bit easier, kind of parse through the different properties. Like we can see the address, which is 10.0.2.15, subnet mask /24, which is 255.255.255.0. Then the gateway is right here. Then we have the routes it's using to actually, you know, reach out through the different interfaces. The DNS server it's using, which is Cloudflare, is right there, 1.1.1.1, and another Cloudflare alternate. And then we can go down to the, you know, loopback device. See, of course, that it's the local host address, which is 127.0.0.1. And then really that is about, oh, actually I skipped over the third interface, which is the one we're going to be editing. Luckily its address is right there. It's 192.168.56.104/24. And that's because it's getting served a DHCP address, which is a dynamic address. So that is something that we're going to be targeting here. But I did also just want to kind of even get a little bit better as far as kind of breaking down what's going on. So we can actually target specific interfaces. Like if we wanted to target ENP0S3, then we can show just that one. Obviously the one that we're going to be editing is P0S8. So of course we can see just this one. We can also see it doesn't even have a gateway set right now, and we're going to be changing that. So now we're actually going to be editing the config for the interface. And if you remember previously, I mentioned that previously you would have to use like Vi or a text editor to go in and change the ifconfig file. But now with nmcli, you don't actually have to do that. We can just use nmcli connection or con, and we would use modify. And I'll show some kind of examples here, actually pretty good examples, honestly, from the op command right here. So you can see right here, this is nmcli con mod, then you would pass the interface name. In this case, it's em11, but of course ours is enp0s3. Then you could use something like ipv4.method, and that's the method of IP assignment. So it would be, you know, dynamic or manual for a static IP address. Then you would actually use the key of ipv4.adder to assign a value to that key, and this would be, of course, an example 192.168.1.2/24 for a /24 subnet mask, and this would be, of course, another alternate IP address that it could use if this one was reaching a conflict, or if we weren't in this IP range, which obviously this is a class C address and this is class A address. And then you can do things like designate the DNS, stuff like that. So what we need to do though for this task is modify the NP0S8. So actually, before we go ahead and modify that interface, I just wanted to show you something. So if you actually try to modify it by the device name, which is ENP0S3, let's say we try to set the IPv4 method to manual, right? You actually get unknown connection, because this is actually specifying by the connection ID. And if we go ahead and show the connection ID, or rather the connection name, we see it's actually wired connection 1. So just to make things a little bit unwieldy and more consistent, we'll first modify wired connection 1. That's its current name, and we are going to set the connection ID, which is basically the name value. We're going to set that to the same as the device name. So that'll set it like that, and then you can see that it is actually set now to ENP0S3, or S8 rather, and we can actually modify it by that name just to make things a little bit easier for us. So now with that done, we can go ahead and start tackling the interface address. We'll go ahead and nmcli con modify by the now changed name, ENP0S8, and first thing we're going to do is tackle, of course, that method of assignment, change it to manual. Then we're going to do the IPv4 address. We're going to set that to 192.168.55, sorry, .71, so set it to a /24. Then we're going to do the gateway address, and we're going to do the gateway of the IPv4. We're going to set that to 192.168.55.1. That's the one that we're going to set it to. And of course, you will notice that this is just IPv4, so we do have to modify both IPv4 and IPv6 separately, but I'm just tackling, of course, IPv4 right now. So we'll go ahead, hit enter. And if we do, let's see, device show enp0s8 now, we will see that the address was not changed yet. So let's go ahead and bring the interface down. So we'll do connection down enp0s8, successfully deactivated. So we'll just go ahead and do enp0s up. We're going to bring that back up, and we'll see now. We take a look at this 55.71 as we put. We'll also see that it is set to the gateway of 192.168.55.0, and that it will be using that gateway. If we did say show enp0s8, we will see that the gateway is 55.1, exactly as we wanted it. So we'll go ahead and ping this interface just to make sure it's working. So 71, you'll see us get echo replies there, so everything's all good. So now we just need to edit the host name. So if you remember from earlier, to print the host name, we just do that. We'll see we don't have one right now. And all we have to do to actually change that is, again, just have to pass a host name to it. And this is the host name that we're using for the purpose of this lab. And you'll see if we run this again, we now have that, but it hasn't changed our shell as far as, because we are still logged into localhost. So all we have to do is just exit. You'll see that it is there now. So same thing. And we are now logged into RHCSA 9 server 1. So the hostname has been successfully changed. And now we're just going to go ahead and repeat this on server 2. So I'll go ahead and pull that up, and we'll just run through everything very fast without explaining as much. So I did forget, we do need to change the IPv6 information on here. So let's go ahead and get that done very quickly. So we'll go ahead and modify this same interface. We're going to choose IPv6.address, and we'll have to take a look at this because it is very long here. Let's see, 2002 FE60 DF0 55. Make sure you include that second colon, because that just means that there was a whole octet basically of zeros. And we do use a 64 subnet mask. That's really pretty much all you have to do. Oh, let's also include the IPv6 method, which is going to be manual as well. And go ahead and bring it down for enp08 and bring it back up as well. And if you see here, let's go device, also make it pretty, device show enp0s8. And you will see here now that we have also changed the IPv6 information. We don't have to set a gateway for this, it looks like, with the lab, an IPv6 gateway, so we are saved from having to do that. And lastly, before we leave, we also want to make sure that the network manager is set to start on boot. So go ahead, check the status, and just rep with no check for case sensitivity. So this is case insensitive, and we are going to check for enabled, and it is enabled. So it will start on boot, so no need to do the enable. It's already set to do so. So we are all good, and we just need to repeat basically this configuration on server 2. So I knew it was forgetting something. Right as I closed this, I remembered that we didn't change the DNS server, so we just need to change that really quick. So obviously, con modify enp0s8. We're going to modify the IPv4 DNS, change that to Google's DNS, which is this, and nmcli Lab con down enp0s8 and con up s8. And if we do /p dev show enp0s8, we will see that it is now using the Google DNS right there. So that's all good. So we'll move on over to server 2. Okay, and you'll see for this, it will be much faster to get everything done since we know exactly what we're doing. So go ahead, see here, enp0s8. Yep, that's the one we want. So we'll go ahead and do this first. Modify the wire connection 1, change the connection ID to nmcli. Oh, whoops. And that is not it. I don't think it's a capital C. It's probably that. Yep. Actually, just this. We will see. Yep, it is probably showing now. Let me just make sure. Yep. Okay. So now we can just modify nmcli with, let's see, ipv4.address. Actually, let's do ipv4.method, set to manual, then ipv4.address 192.168.55.72, I believe is this one. Let's see. Would be, yep, 72/24. Set the gateway to 192.168.55.1. And I believe that should be it for that. Let's then do nmcli ipv6 method would be manual, ipv6.address would be that 2002 right there, fe60 df0 56/64. Of course, we don't need a gateway for this one. And then lastly, we will modify .dns, set it to .8, which is Google's DNS. And that should be it for that. Now I just need to do the host name. So do nmcli, general host name, nothing there. RHCSA 9 server 2. And then we will exit. Root. I can't spell root. Go ahead, log in. So that's good. And yeah, that's all the configurations we need to do. Let's just see the status of manager. It is enabled, so it will start on next boot. And we should actually now also be able to ping, let's see, 5.7. Do 1. We can't get that, might be part of a next task because we should be able to see it. Oh, I know why, because we did not do con down. nmp0s8 con up nmp0s8 understood. Oh, con up 0s8. So if we do this now, make it nice and pretty, dev show emp0s8, we should see it is on the proper subnet, the adapter that we want to reach, has a gateway and everything. So we should actually just be able to ping, as long as we did everything correctly, 71. Oh, well, not actually up right now. That could be the reason why. So let's go ahead and bring it up. Just see, test to see if we did everything correctly. Go ahead and give it a sec. And yep, we are getting echo replies from that server, so we have done all the configuration successfully. So that should be pretty much everything. That's the full solution for this task, which, if we recall, was just to ensure that we had the network interface configured on both servers with host names and network services start at boot. So that's the solution for this task, and we will continue forward from here. This helped. Hope it did. Hope I explained everything well so you actually understood everything that's going on. I know it was a little bit slow at the beginning, but I feel that, you know, for being a system administrator, you really need to understand everything that's happening. That way, if anything is different, you are prepared to actually go through. You have the resources necessary to actually go through. And of course, I will link the links to these documentations in the description below. But yeah, on to the next one. Thanks.